And it's time for the after show of the Improbability Engine. I'm Will Aubrey. My buddy Joe Darnell is here, and today we're talking about our favorite country songs. I'm going to have you go first, Joe.
Well, I'm at a disadvantage because my time with country music stopped basically, it didn't stop cold, but it stopped pretty hard about the time Randy Travis was digging up bones. I mean, it's not, I am not into anything newer than probably No Fences by Garth Brooks.
I would tend to agree with you. Now, I have a friend, a young lady that I met a few months ago, and we were talking the first day we met about country music, and she said she liked the old stuff. And I said, yeah, me too. And she said, yeah, like Carrie Underwood. And I was like, no, just no.
No.
That's not old.
Okay, so if I'm going to give you one song that has to be on my list, now my list is not going to be a complete list because there's a lot of really good country songs out there. But let's start towards the newer side for me.
Okay.
Dwight Yoakam, Guitars and Cadillacs.
Okay.
This is a song that was on the radio when I was a kid, and I always liked Dwight Yoakam's voice because it is absolutely not what you would consider a mainstream professional pop voice. And quite frankly, he didn't look like...
Oh, indeed not.
You know what I mean? He looks like a guy that your dad worked with who on the weekends played guitar. That's what Dwight Yoakam looks like to me. And so when you get something like Guitars and Cadillacs, great song, fun. It's just one of those songs you can put on and you're like, yeah, you know, even people who don't like country music, in the right situations, they could listen to Guitars and Cadillacs by Dwight Yoakam.
I'm actually going to pick something relatively new, and
You would.
it's alt country. So a lot of people
Okay.
may not have heard of it.
Yeah.
I love alt country.
Absolutely.
Not a fan of the pop country nonsense they play on the radio now.
Yeah.
Brandi Carlile,
Okay.
Way to You. And it is a terrific song. It's about old friends who haven't seen each other in a long time and getting back together. And, shortly after I was reunited with my friend Becky, I sent her the song, and she told me, she said, that'll be our anthem, and I use it as her ringtone. It's just an awesome song. Go to YouTube and search for Brandi Carlile, Way to You. It's just terrific.
Absolutely. And to me, alt country is country music.
Yeah.
I think of a lot of the country music that's played now, I consider that twang pop because they're all kind of sounding the same. It's all slick and it's just, there's nothing to it. There's no real heart in it. And
Just real quickly,
Yeah.
one of my favorite lyrics from Way to You. Take my wings and a heart that's true and find the way to you. Now.
can't go wrong with that.
No.
My next song is one of those songs that it was alt country before alt country was a thing, and it's by John Prine.
Oh, okay.
The name of the song is Your Flag Decal Won't Get You Into Heaven Anymore.
Okay.
And it might be one of the best country songs that I've ever heard.
Now, I love John Prine, but I'm not familiar with that song.
So the song, if you're familiar with John Prine, he has a lot of humor in his songs. His songs are poignant, and they can often pull at your heartstrings pretty hard. But he's not afraid to put something in there that's humorous. And he wrote the song in the 70s and during the Vietnam War, and it was a send up to the I don't want to get too political on this, but to the right-wing patriots who were more than happy to continue the fight in Vietnam. And it talks about the idea of pseudo-patriotism. Talking about how, yeah, you got the flag decal on your car, but do you actually care?
Right.
And
Right.
and to me, that's I think that's something that doesn't really ever go away. I think that's exactly the same thing we see every generation, is that you have this idea that patriotism means this, but it doesn't necessarily mean the things that I don't want to think about.
Now, I'm going way old here.
Okay.
Ernest Tubb, Waltz Across Texas. It's an amazing song, amazing lyrics, and my favorite lyric is, when you look at me with those stars in your eyes, I could waltz across Texas with you. And any guy who's ever had a girl look at him that way knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. And I think mine actually plays on the other side of that. Mine's Patsy Cline, I Fall to Pieces.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I mean, it's the same concept. And as much elation as you have this concept of, I'll waltz across Texas, because that's what you feel. You're walking on air. You're just floating. You don't even realize it. You don't even know where you're going. And then you hear Patsy Cline sing, I Fall to Pieces. Now, one of the greatest voices in country music of all time, died at an inopportune age and actually close by to here in a plane crash. But one of the great voices of country music. And I Fall to Pieces is just a poignant love song that tries to encapsulate that heartache and pain of loss in that, and just a fantastic song. And I think as we're talking about these, we're going to find that most of these songs either come from a place of humor or they come from a place of love and hurt.
Yes.
That seems to be a very recurring theme in the great songs of country music, is that either, hey, look, we're looking at something that's going to be a little funny. You know what I mean? We're going to poke fun at something because that's what we do. Or you're going to say, hey, look, everything else really doesn't matter, because it all comes down to love and loss. And how do we deal with both of those things?
The Greatest Man I Never Knew. It is an incredible song, and it's a song that a child sings about her father, and he was always too busy. And she was always, when she got older, too busy. And they never really got to know each other. And it's tough for me to talk about without crying, but the last two lines are, he never said he loved me. Guess he thought I knew.
And there is an underlying common thread in most people's lives that, for people of a certain age, the idea of emotional expression was difficult. And so growing up as a child without that would affect you and does affect you. And I think what we're finding with a lot of this country music is that it comes from a place of just understood truth.
Well, and that's what's missing in pop country today. It has no
Absolutely.
heart.
It has no heart. It's not based in reality. It's almost as if they had a cliche machine that they just have somebody say, okay, we need 3 chords and 12 cliches. Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
And that's good enough. And to me, it loses the appeal of what all roots music should have. And that's an understanding of what's going on really in my life. You know, how do I bring this thing that I'm feeling, or this thing that I'm, kind of dealing with in my own life, how do I bring that and try to have this catharsis with 5,000 strangers.
Now, the flip side of the father-child dynamic was a song by Jack Green, He Belongs to Me. And at the beginning of the song, it's talking about when the singer is a little boy and he breaks out a neighbor's window playing ball. And so his dad takes him, they come, they apologize to the neighbor. And his dad says to the neighbor, he belongs to me. He's a part of me. He's screwed up here.
Right.
That's not the exact lyric there. But anyway, he's screwed up here, but he belongs to me. And at the end, and now I'm about to cry again, but at the end, when his dad's dying, he says the same thing. He belongs to me.
Yeah. And it goes back to this, when we talk about reality, what I found to be the most impactful about certain types of roots music, be it blues or country or, bluegrass even, it's this commonality amongst people that comes across. This idea that what the song sings about is universal and understood, and I think that we talked about it a little bit with love and loss. On the loss side, it's often, understanding life and death and knowing that, the process of our lives is cyclical. I mean, we're going to spend half of our lives being given new people and new things, and then at some point in our lives, those people are going to be taken away from us. And some of them voluntarily, some of them are going to go. Some of those people are just going to be taken, and you're left with the memory and the pieces of that, and trying to understand how you can learn to be better.
What's your next one?
My next song is by Lefty Frizzell. It's Long Black Veil.
Oh, it's an awesome song.
The first time I heard the song, a buddy of mine had it on a mix CD that he had put together and was playing it, and I was doing something else and not paying attention, and this song came on, and of course, it's a very mournful song. It's not what you'd call a light listening type of song, but it's about a guy who's been accused of a crime he didn't commit, and the only way that he can prove his innocence is by coming clean about the fact that he was sleeping with his best friend's wife. And instead of destroying her and destroying his friend, he goes to the gallows instead.
Right.
Which you could argue all day long that, the morality of it, you've already destroyed that person, you've already done the bad in it, come clean and save your life and live the rest of your life trying to make amends. Or even the idea that the punishment in some weird way fits, that level of betrayal. It brings up a lot of those emotions that you have to try to grasp and understand, and it doesn't offer any easy answers. And I think that's what makes it such a great song, is it doesn't give false hope of simplicity.
I'll Be True to You. It was written by Alan Rohde, and interestingly enough, he wrote it, and it was originally 8 minutes long, and so nobody wanted to record it.
Right.
And he recorded it, but of course, Alan never became a star.
Right.
So he gets this phone call. And he answers the phone, and it's his publisher. And they say, the Oak Ridge Boys want you. Well, first they say, you remember that 8 minute long death ballad that you wrote? Yeah. Well, the Oak Ridge Boys want to record that as their first country song. And, of course, he was over the moon. They wanted him to cut it, so he had to cut it from 8 minutes down to about 3.5 minutes.
Right.
But it's another awesome, sad song.
Yeah, agreed.
And I'll mention one other right now, Jody and the Kid. And I don't know if you do this, but I take snatches from a song. Well, sometimes I'll latch onto them and I'll say, well, that's like me in this situation.
Yeah.
It's not often that I can completely identify with a song.
Right, yeah.
But with snatches I can. Jody and the Kid is an example of that. And it starts out, he walks down the levee every day with this little girl holding his hand, and they called him Jody and the Kid. And he's older than she is.
Yeah.
And, the first time I heard it, I thought, wow, that's sort of like me and Becky, because we weren't walking down a levee or anything, but I was older than she was, and we were both in speech and debate. I taught her how to do extemp. I taught her how to do debate. I taught her those things. And so anyway, aside from that parallel, it's a great song.
Absolutely. My next song is actually a little bit lighter. It's country music has a really interesting way of being able to take something sad and turn it on its ear just a little bit to where the song doesn't sound sad. And I think the best example of that is Buck Owens' Act Naturally.
Yeah.
The lyric goes, they're going to put me in the movies. They're going to make a big star out of me. All I got to do is play a character who's sad and lonely, and all I got to do is act naturally. Basically what he said is, I'm sad and I'm lonely. And what you get from it is this upbeat pop song that is country music to the core, but is taken. The Beatles did a cover of Act Naturally. Ringo Starr sings Act Naturally a lot in his current stage shows. So it's one of those songs that has kind of...
and Johnny Russell wrote it.
Yeah, it's a fantastic song. I mean, it's smart, it's funny, but at its heart lies this painful truth that is in it is anything but what the song sounds like. And I think that belies a truth that goes into it. I think that's a fantastic way of doing that.
Another example of turning it on its ear and making it funny, I believe the title of the song is Have Them Over Again. It's a John Prine song.
Okay.
And, it's about a couple where, Prine sings about their best friends. He sings, I love her and you love him. Let's have them over again.
John Prine is he's a funny guy.
He is.
I mean, he just is. And it's smart humor. It's stuff that he uses, double entendre, or he'll use some kind of hidden twist on what he's doing, and it changes everything.
Now, this is not a funny song, but you can't talk about John Prine without mentioning Paradise.
Absolutely. And the story of John Prine is one that has anchors in this region. While he grew up in Illinois, his grandparents lived in western Kentucky, and they had ties to the old mining town of Paradise, Kentucky, in Muhlenberg County. And the song comes out and immediately gets taken under its wing by numerous other musicians, because it just speaks to that concept of the lost past. Now, for Prine, it was a physical losing of the town of Paradise. And for other people, it might be this idea of time's lost and people's lost, and the world's changed and it's not the same as it was when I was a kid, and you lose certain things, and there's nostalgia involved. But John Prine, whenever he sings Paradise, he's talking about a real steam shovel coming and taking away this town, this advent of strip mining as opposed to, underground coal mining, and how it completely destroyed different parts of the area. And it's a fantastic song. It's well written. It's one that, quite frankly, most people around here are country music fans of a certain age. They all know the song. So it's nothing new there. And speaking of songs that you know, Townes Van Zandt, Pancho and Lefty.
Another awesome song.
Good country music tells a story.
It does.
And I mean, it does it in a way that you immediately connect and understand, even if you don't know everything that's going on. Which I think is the beauty of a lot of country music. And this song, Pancho and Lefty, is a great example of, you don't know the whole story behind this stuff. But by God, you listen to that song and you feel like you do. You feel like you get, Lefty.
Ode to Billy Joe.
Ode to Billy Joe. Another song that tells a story that leaves more questions than answers, but it hints awfully hard.
Yeah.
And because of that, you're able to insert yourself to fill in the gaps to make that story real, and it becomes more impactful. But a fantastic song, and a song that really was completely different than all the music that came out around it. It was a hit, and it didn't sound like a lot of the stuff that was on the radio at the time.
And the amazing thing is that Bobby Gentry, who was huge for a period of a few years there,
Right.
has totally disappeared.
Yeah.
Now, I saw an interview done with her, and she has no interest in being the center of attention or anything like that anymore.
Right.
She says the people around her where she lives, they don't know that she used to be a star.
Right.
And nobody recognizes her, and she likes it that way.
Yeah. Well, and I think everybody has that right to do so. So, you look at what she was able to do, and maybe her career was all she wanted it to be. And if that's the case, move on and do something else great.
Didn't Townes Van Zandt do Send Me Dead Flowers? That's another.
Townes Van Zandt is an underrated singer-songwriter. I think as much as somebody like Willie Nelson is almost deified as a singer-songwriter, and rightly so. I mean, the man has been a prolific songwriter for decades.
And by the way, if you like Willie Nelson and you like Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain, get on YouTube, search for Redheaded Stranger. The album, all the cuts from it are on YouTube.
Yeah.
Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain was part of a concept album where it starts at the beginning, goes to the end. All the songs fit together to tell a story.
Right.
You need to listen to that.
Yeah, and only somebody with the songwriting chops of Willie Nelson could do that in the country genre, because that is writing. Rock music often has its concept albums and stuff like that, and some of them are good, like Tommy by The Who. Some of them are not so good. Mr. Roboto by Styx. I always think about that one, but Redheaded Stranger does do that. Redheaded Stranger does bring this idea from beginning to end, and it's a testament to how good of a singer-songwriter that Willie Nelson is.
And I want to mention Still by Bill Anderson.
Yeah.
My parents got divorced when I was about 13. And I remember hearing that song one morning playing on the radio. After they'd gotten divorced, I told my mom that it reminded me of Dad. She got very angry, which I did not understand at the time.
Yeah, and it's often left to children to try to figure out things that are above their level of understanding at that point. And maybe that's the draw to a lot of these old country music, the same way that blues music can be the same way, is its idea that there are people who've gone through what you're going through.
Yeah.
Even if it's a little bit different, or the situation's not the same, or the time isn't the same, or whatever. It's this idea of commiseration of, hey, you're not alone. This has happened before, and people have gotten through it.
What's your next one? And while you work on that, I'm going to try to think of a great happy country song.
Okay, mine is actually by the Everly Brothers.
Okay.
Bye Bye Love.
Okay.
Now, the Everly Brothers, Phil and Don Everly, were the sons of a bluegrass musician who I believe played with or was contemporary to Bill Monroe while Bill Monroe was having his heyday. And so here come these two boys out of coal mining territory, in the caves area around central and eastern or western Kentucky, and it's the Everly Brothers. And these guys were rock and roll music as much as they were country for the mid-50s. They were fantastic, and they were known for their uber tight vocal harmonies, to the point that their music actually influenced the Beatles and their vocal harmonies a decade later, which quite frankly might be the greatest compliment that any music can have, is, hey, look, you influenced the next generation of singers and songwriters. And just a fantastic set of circumstances brought these two young kids from the country and the sticks of western Kentucky to worldwide stardom as country music stars. And Bye Bye Love is one of the songs that you have to point at. You have to look at it and say, yeah, that's...
David Allan Cole, you never even called me by my name. I've actually twice sung that song. Once in a bar of sorts. We won't say exactly what kind.
Oh my God, that's worse than just saying it. There are people listening to this going, oh my God, what kind of bar was Will in?
The MC came over
The
and
Manhole, Chicago, Illinois.
And he put the microphone there, and my buddy Keith and I sang that song. And then I did it at a karaoke place once, and everybody sang along. And I went back and I sat down, and my friends all made the mistake of telling me how great I was. So I thought, I'm going to do another song. That's how some of those people get on America's Got Talent.
That's
who
it.
Can't
That's
sing.
exactly right. Yep. Yeah, and you get to some of those where you're like, you know what? That's about right. Yeah, you're just that. Somebody lied to you, or somebody didn't know any better. Yeah. So my next one.
Well, just
go ahead.
I got drunk the day my mom got out of prison.
John Prine actually helped write that song.
Did he?
He did.
John Prine and Steve Goodman then.
Steve Goodman, they were good friends. And Goodman called him up and said, hey, they're going to do this song. I'm going to put your name on the credits. And Prine says, hell no, don't put my name on the credits for that song. And it became the biggest song of the year. It was the biggest country music song of its time.
That's what Farron Young said about Hello Walls, which was his big hit. He said, when they brought that song to me, I said, you got to be kidding. This is stupid.
Right.
And turned out to be his biggest hit.
Yep. And I've got a couple here that are really good. This one's a little bit newer, and I say newer, post-1970.
Okay.
George Strait, All My Exes Live in Texas.
Awesome.
It's one of those songs, again, using a little bit of comedy.
Yes.
But it is a poignant song in its own way. But it's well played. It's got that Texas swing to it. It's a fun song to listen to, and was on the radio all day and all night back in the mid to late 80s. It was everywhere. So this next one, this one's interesting.
Okay.
In the 50s, it was not uncommon for there to be songs that responded to each other.
Ah, yes.
So you can't really talk about one of the songs
Without
without
talking
talking
about
the
the answer.
answer. And so you get to certain songs, and you have to you got to play both sides to it.
I'm hoping I know which one this is.
Okay, well, you tell me what you're thinking.
The Wild Side of Life.
You nailed it.
Yes.
Wild Side of Life might be one of the greatest country music songs, period, full stop, end. But it also spawned really great songs that came afterwards.
Right.
And how do you not bring them all into that? You know, when you talk about Wild Side of Life, you know, I didn't know God made honky tonk angels. What a great country line. That's perfect. And then when you get to the response, and Kitty Wells sang it, she said, "It wasn't God who made honky tonk angels." And you get this
For
story.
every heart that's ever been broken, there always was a man to blame.
That's
and
it.
I
What
saw
an
it.
awesome song set. I mean,
I saw a documentary on country music, and they were talking about Kitty Wells and her answer song, and they said she was the first woman to say in a song, "You're a jerk, and here's why."
right, which quite honestly was all female artists from like 1992 to 1996. Alanis Morissette made her bones talking about, at least originally, "You're a jerk, and here's why." And that's a courageous, powerful, egalitarian statement, because by God, men have been doing that for decades.
Yeah.
You know, and to have somebody like Kitty Wells in 1952 come out with "It wasn't God who made honky tonk angels" in a direct response to one of the biggest songs of the year previously. What a fantastic, those are two great, by themselves, they're great songs.
They are.
But you play them back to back, oh baby, that's great music. And honestly, I would not be surprised if that didn't influence later country music artists to do those big time superstar duets. Because you sometimes need to balance that. You know, you need to have a balance in a song that talks about certain things. You need to have it. We talk about truth as something that we talk about with country music, is that it's pulling apart a truth. It's trying to understand something that is factual and happening in someone's life. When you get to something like that, it comes back to an old saying that my grandparents used to tell me: there's three sides to every story. There's his side, there's her side, and there's the truth.
Yeah.
And the problem is that most times people can't perceive the whole truth. They can only perceive what they can of the truth. And the other side only perceives what they can of the truth. And the truth is probably somewhere down the middle, and they both have a piece of it, but neither one has the whole thing.
Without nerding out about the deconstruction theory of literature and truth, I have to mention He Stopped Loving Her Today. It's widely considered the greatest country song of all time. It's often, and I've tried to focus on less well-known songs, but one of the saddest songs ever, and it's in the vein of He Stopped Loving Her Today, and it is relatively new. It's only about 10 or 12 years old. Whiskey Lullaby.
Yeah, kind of the same concept. Yeah.
It is.
And it goes back to using music to tell a story, and the story should have some resemblance to truth.
Yeah.
And those things, I think, kind of pull it back in, and that's something that's very positive. Getting a little bit lighter, but one that it has a special part in my life, because it's something I grew up listening to in my household. Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson, "Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys."
Love that song.
Great song. And you know what? It's funny because it turns this idealized image of the good cowboy in the white hat You know, the guy that's the good guy in all the movies, the one growing up, in the 50s and 60s you saw every day or every week or even every night on television. The good guy, the good cowboy. I want to be that guy. I want to be the good cowboy. Well, they don't tell you what the good cowboy has to give up or what he does with the rest of his time. And here Willie Nelson and Waylon, they talk about it in his, cowboys like smoky old pool rooms and clear mountain mornings.
Yeah.
Those are two things that are totally polar opposite. They like children and puppies and girls of the night. And you just kind of go, ugh, okay, so it's not all good.
No.
Them that don't like it, or them that don't know him won't like him, and them that do sometimes won't know how to take him.
Right.
It's one of those things where it's explaining to people, hey, look, being somebody who's this principled isn't all it's cracked up to be. And quite simply,
And it doesn't just apply to cowboys.
no, it talks, well, you could say from a slightly more meta perspective, it's talking about country music singers. Everybody wants to be everybody wants to be a star. Well, being a star is lonesome. It's,
Yeah.
you're lonely all the time. And when you're not lonely, you want to be away from people, and you don't, people don't understand why you're the way you are because they can't understand how you could be upset. You've got everything. Why? You're a cowboy, for Christ's sake. You should, this should be fun. You should have a good time. And yeah, but not always.
If you're big star bound, let me tell you, it's a long, hard ride.
Okay, so I've got two more. And this first one is one that I didn't fully appreciate until I got older.
Okay.
Jolene by Dolly Parton.
Okay.
A good song. Dolly's fantastic. She's a wonderful singer. And the song is great. Until I heard it done by Jack White, 10 years ago. Now,
Jack White.
Jack White of the White Stripes. Now, the thing with Jack White is he is an alternative rock kind of a guy, but loves classic country.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure how they would change the lyrics for him
No
to do
changes
it.
whatsoever. Because it's not about the story that it's being told by that person. It's about paying homage to the song. So listening to him play it, I was just like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? But it makes you focus on the lyrics.
Have you heard Jules' recording of it?
I have not.
Okay, I really like that.
Yeah, and I think what it does is it made me, I was at an age in my life where I was like, you know what? Old country music is simple and there's no depth to it. It's blah. And I'm gonna go off and
Right,
listen to alt
right.
rock and then I hear him sing this song, and it's simple, yes, but it's powerful. And what it did is it made me go back and listen to the Dolly Parton version, and all of a sudden I was able to pull away some of the production
Okay.
of the old country music and hear Dolly singing this song. And it's a desperate plea. It is a
Yeah.
woman begging. And what's funny is I looked at Dolly Parton and I never saw her as a woman begging. You know what I mean? She was always strong and smart and sassy and, quick with a joke and able to handle things. And here she is really fully developing this person and this persona in this song. And it was just amazing.
Your description of it reminds me of Last Cheater's Waltz and the lyrics, the ball game's all over and she knows she's lost.
Yeah.
Because that's really the situation
Right.
that
It's a
the
complete
singer in
understanding.
Jolene is in.
Complete understanding of I've got nothing else and I'm begging you. And there's a vulnerability and a helplessness to it that is powerful. It's a palpable thing. I mean, that's something that we've all been to that point where we're completely helpless. and we beg, we plead, we try, and there's nothing we can do.
It was Dolly when she was great,
Absolutely, absolutely.
before she got involved in destroying country music.
Well, we can talk about that. That's different. Okay, so this next one is a little different. Merle Haggard, "Mama Tried."
It's a great song.
This is a song that I've never been to prison. You know what I mean? But you often can look back on when you make a mistake and you do something that's really dumb, and you think about how the biggest impact isn't so much, well, I'm a moron and I'll pay for my own mistakes. It's that, okay, my choices will have a negative effect on people that I care about. And don't blame them because I screwed up. And I think that's at the heart of Mama Tried, is don't blame this person who all they ever did was love me.
She did all she could.
All she could do, and I still turned out bad. It's on me, not on them. And I think that's a beautiful sentiment on a song that is outlaw country. I mean,
I've got to mention two Merle Haggard songs since you brought him up. Irma Jackson and Go Home. I don't know if you're familiar with both of those or not.
I'm not. I want to hear about them.
Irma Jackson. Irma Jackson, he talks about how nobody cared
Right.
when they were playing together when they were kids.
Right.
Nobody cared about the color of their skin.
Right.
But now, people care. And he sings, if loving Irma Jackson is a sin, then I don't know what kind of world we're living in. I love Irma Jackson till I die. And here's a song from like 1968 about interracial marriage, and his label did not want him to record that song.
Absolutely not. And
he did it anyway. And at about the same time he recorded Go Home. And in Go Home, it's a song about a guy who's in Mexico, and he wants to marry this Mexican girl. And she tells him, your people won't understand. Go home.
Right.
He talks her into marrying him. They move to the United States.
Yeah.
And one day, while he's at work, his friends go see his wife. And they tell her to go home. Again, at the time he recorded these songs, his label was afraid it would ruin his career.
Yeah.
I think he showed great courage in doing that. We haven't mentioned Johnny Cash. And how do you talk about country music without mentioning Johnny Cash?
Well, we could do a whole segment
on Johnny
just
Cash.
Johnny Cash. I mean, it's the same thing with Willie Nelson. You could do the same thing with Willie Nelson. Songs of Willie Nelson, and you could just talk for hours on both of those guys. I think Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson are examples of singers and songwriters who are too big to just put into country music categories.
Of course, Folsom Prison Blues is a great song.
I Walk the Line. And
yeah, I mean, just
Fire. I mean, it's just so many
great,
good ones. Sunday Morning Coming
songs.
Down. I mean, it's.
But funny story. Roseanne Cash recorded Tennessee Flat Top Box, and when she recorded it, she did not know that her father had recorded it as well. And so, but anyway.
So my last song.
Okay.
And it's the first one we've mentioned of his. I think it's one of those where we could probably expand upon his music for at least a half hour.
Okay.
And that's Hank Williams' I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry, which might be, I honestly think Hank Williams was the father of modern country music in a lot of ways. You have this guy, and again, when you think about the cowboy, he's strong and independent, a loner, and so on and so forth. And here's a cowboy singing, you know, "I'm so lonesome I could cry," and it's a very powerful message that I think could be, you know, ignored now, but for its time, it was kind of a big deal. I mean, that's, you know, you're talking about the late 1940s, and you're talking about the generation that just got back from World War II that are embroiled into, you know, the world of Cold War and all of that. And this song, which is even now popular, I mean, I know a lot of people love this song.
There are a lot of covers of it.
Absolutely. And I think because the sentiment is a real one. It's one that just,
Yeah.
you
Hear
know,
that lonesome whippoorwill. He sounds too blue to fly.
yeah. And that's such a simple line.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not the uber complexity that you would have in certain things. And we talk about, well, country music now is a bunch of cliches and simplicity. This is before that. Everything else seems derivative of the straightforward nature of "I'm so lonesome I could cry."
Right.
You know, everything else seems like a derivative. Everything else seems like they tried to say what he's saying, but he said it better and he said it first. And we can't stop trying to say what he said, so we'll just figure out a way to say what he said in a different way. You know, you talk about what he was able to do in his short career, because he died young. Hank Williams died young. And it's impressive to me that he was able to do what he did. And that was a career cut short. You know, that's one of those that, you know, you give him 10 more years, who knows what kind of career he has.
Yeah.
Maybe he's the Johnny Cash of his generation. Maybe he strikes that chord first, and we talk about him and Johnny Cash being that rebel country godfather that doesn't allow it to go and follow pop music, but kind of goes its own way into telling a story and talking about things that probably aren't things that the record company wants you to talk about. You know what I mean? That's it's a missed opportunity.
Loretta Lynn. And it's tough to just pick one,
Yeah.
because she had so many great songs. But I love Loretta Lynn and Fifth City. You know, that's one of my favorite songs. And One's on the Way.
Yeah.
It's also a terrific song. I want to close with an instrumental.
Okay.
Del Wood, Down Yonder.
You can go with a lot of really good instrumentals, and that's very serious about country music. Is you can find so many that are fantastic country instrumentals, and right now I'm thinking about a guy named Les Paul, who was one of the greatest guitar players of all time and influenced all music for generations to come. And he was a guy that did the same thing. He would play instrumentals and play them in such a way that just powerful. You know, you can't overstate the impact on music coming from those country instrumentals. And I think that's a very good example. That's a good one to close on.
Okay, that brings to a close this edition of the Improbability Engine.